Would someone please explain to me why there are humans at the galaxy's most elite military competition? I asked, my upper tentacles twitching with poorly concealed irritation. Standing at my observation post, I watched their rickety transport ship make an embarrassingly wobbly landing on our pristine docking platform. The landing was so bad that 3 of my eyes involuntarily closed, a reflex developed over centuries of watching spectacular crashes. But somehow, against all probability, their ship managed to stay intact, barely. Commander Zarzith, my assistant Lieutenant Blixer, cleared all 4 of his throat sacs before continuing. The humans qualified fair and square. They scored unexpectedly well in the preliminary trials. Preliminary trials? I scoffed, my scales shifting to a shade of disbelieving purple. Next you'll tell me they beat the Centaurian battlecruisers in speed tests, or outmaneuvered the Arcturus Shadow Corps in stealth exercises. Blixer's skin flickered nervously between green and yellow. Well, sir, they did. I needed to sit down. All 8 of my support limbs suddenly felt weak. This is a joke, right? Some sort of elaborate prank the Council cooked up for the 500th anniversary of the Galactic Military Academy? The transport's door hissed open, with a sound that reminded me of a dying Venusian swamp beast. Out stepped 5 human cadets, and I couldn't help but notice they looked absolutely thrilled to be here. The audacity! They were grinning, chatting, and one of them, by all that's sacred, was chewing something. The tall one with the dark head fur is their leader, Luna Blackwood, Blixer reported, consulting his datapad. The one fiddling with that primitive electronic device is Kai Rodriguez, and the small one making strategic observations is Nova Chen. Strategic observations? I zoomed in with my third eye. She's drawing something on a paper with a stick of compressed carbon. Paper? Who even uses paper anymore? Just then, Admiral Krelthor's booming voice echoed through the Academy's announcement system. Welcome, elite warriors of the galaxy. The 500th annual interstellar military competition begins in exactly 3 rotation cycles. May the most superior species emerge victorious. I watched as the humans gave each other those strange gesture rituals they called high fives and fist bumps. Around them, the galaxy's most sophisticated warfare experts were performing their pre-competition meditation rituals, activating their neural enhancement implants, and calibrating their quantum combat processors. Meanwhile, Luna Blackwood pulled out what appeared to be a container of processed sugar and caffeine. Energy drink, they called it, and took a long swig. This will be the shortest competition in Academy history, I declared confidently. Those humans won't last through the first challenge. Oh, how wrong I was. How hilariously, catastrophically wrong. The combat simulation arena stood before us, a marvel of quantum engineering that could recreate any battlefield scenario in the known universe. Floating holoscreens displayed the contestants' vital signs, strategy matrices, and combat efficiency ratings. Every species had been assigned their own observation pod, and I settled into mine, ready to watch the humans fail spectacularly. First round, urban warfare scenario. Objective, capture the central command post, announced the arena's AI. Contestants, prepare for neural interface synchronization. I chuckled as the human team struggled with their basic neural connectors. Meanwhile, Captain Egrix and his Centaurian squad had already achieved perfect neural resonance. Their battle meditation scores were off the charts. Begin simulation in 3, 2, 1. The arena transformed into a sprawling megalopolis. Towering structures of chrome and glass stretched toward an artificial sky, perfect for showcasing advanced tactical protocols and state-of-the-art combat algorithms. What are they doing? Lieutenant Blixer squinted at the human team's tactical display. They're splitting up? I leaned forward, my tentacles curling in confusion. Luna Blackwood had indeed divided her team into 3 groups, completely ignoring the standard formation protocols. Nova Chen disappeared into a ground-level maintenance tunnel, while Kai Rodriguez was climbing a drainage pipe. Absolutely absurd, I muttered. They've never even trained with quantum positioning systems. They'll be completely lost without... An explosion rocked the simulation. Captain Ygrix's team had launched a perfectly executed pincer movement, their neural-linked weapons finding targets with surgical precision. 3 other elite squads converged on the central command post, their movements a beautiful dance of tactical perfection. Then things got weird. Nova Chen emerged from a maintenance tunnel directly under the Arcturus Shadow Core, armed with what looked like... Were those paint grenades? The simulation filled with clouds of neon pink smoke. The Shadow Core's advanced optical systems, calibrated for stealth detection, went into complete overdrive. "That's not regulation combat equipment," I protested. "Actually, sir," Blixer consulted his rulebook, "there's nothing specifically prohibiting non-lethal diversionary tactics." While everyone was distracted by the impromptu color festival below, Kai Rodriguez had reached the top of his drainage pipe. He pulled out a primitive projectile weapon, a grappling hook of all things, and started swinging between buildings like some sort of urban primate. "This is a mockery of proper military procedure," I sputtered, watching as he crashed through windows, creating chaos among the perfectly positioned sniper units. But Luna Blackwood's move was the most baffling. She walked right into the main entrance of the command post. Just walked in. While everyone else was engaged in complex tactical maneuvers, she strolled through the front door, whistling something called "Never Gonna Give You Up." "She's going to get eliminated immediately," I predicted confidently. Instead, she reached the central control panel and started pressing buttons randomly. The building's advanced defense systems, programmed to respond to sophisticated hacking attempts, had no protocol for someone just pushing everything that looked shiny. "System override accepted," the AI announced. "Central command post captured. Human team victorious." You could have heard a Martian dust mite sneeze in the silence that followed. Captain Ygrix's neural interface actually short-circuited from sheer disbelief. The Arcturus Shadow Core were still trying to recalibrate their optics, now covered in pink paint. And Luna Blackwood's team, they were celebrating with something called the robot dance. "This has to be a malfunction," I insisted, all my eyes twitching simultaneously. "Run a diagnostic on the simulation parameters." "All systems functioning normally," the AI replied, with what I swore was a hint of amusement. "Human victory confirmed." As the teams exited the arena, I overheard Nova Chen explaining their strategy to a bewildered group of alien cadets. "Sometimes the best way through high-tech security is low-tech chaos." "But how did you calculate the optimal chaos coefficients?" someone asked. "We didn't," Kai Rodriguez grinned. "We just thought it would be fun to make things go boom." I felt a headache building in all 3 of my brain clusters. If this was just the first challenge, what other surprises did these humans have in store? Looking at their celebrating faces, I had a sinking feeling I was about to find out. The strategic planning chamber was our pride and joy, a quantum-powered maze generator that could create defense scenarios so complex they'd make a supercomputer cry. Today's challenge? Protect a planetary capital from an invasion force while managing limited resources. "Each team has access to state-of-the-art defensive systems," Admiral Krelthor announced. "Planetary shields, orbital cannons, and drone swarms are at your disposal." I watched the humans huddle around their control station. Nova Chen had pulled out that primitive carbon stick again, drawing on what appeared to be the back of a food wrapper. Luna Blackwood was building something with spare parts, while Kai Rodriguez played with the simulation controls like they were some sort of entertainment device. "The humans appear to be doodling," Blixer reported, confusion evident in his voice. "Probably accepting their inevitable defeat with those strange human coping mechanisms," I said confidently. The simulation began. The maze-like defensive grid materialized around each team's planetary capital. Captain Ygrix's team immediately deployed a textbook, perfect defensive formation. The Arcturus Shadow Core, still slightly pink from the last challenge, activated their quantum probability matrices. Then, Luna Blackwood's voice came over the command channel. "Hey, does anyone want to trade some planetary shields for tacos?" "Trade? What?" Captain Ygrix's perfect composure cracked slightly. "Yeah, we've got extra shields, but we're kind of hungry. Anyone got snacks?" While everyone was processing this bizarre request, Nova Chen had somehow reconfigured their orbital cannons into what she called a cosmic pinball machine. "You can't just turn advanced military hardware into a game," I shouted at the screen. "Actually, sir," Blixer pointed at the tactical display, "their modified cannons are creating an unpredictable ricochet pattern that's taking down enemy ships with 87% efficiency." Kai Rodriguez had reprogrammed their drone swarms to fly in formations that spelled out messages like, "Surrender now," and "Your invasion insurance rates will skyrocket." The psychological warfare was so absurd that 3 enemy AI commanders crashed trying to calculate a logical response. "This is unprecedented," Captain Igrix protested. "They're violating every strategic principle in the manual." "What manual?" Luna Blackwood asked cheerfully. "We're just doing what works in Cosmic Defender 5000. "The entertainment simulation?" I felt my scales turning an alarming shade of puce. "You're basing military strategy on a game?" "Well, yeah," Nova Chen shrugged. "Where do you think we learned about resource management and boss fight patterns?" The invasion force was now in complete disarray. Half the ships had retreated, confused by the unorthodox tactics. The other half were trapped in Nova's pinball cannon crossfire, while Kai's drone swarms spelled out "game over" in 20 different languages. "Simulation complete," the AI announced. "Human team has successfully defended their capital with minimum resources used." Minimum resources? I checked the data. "They didn't even activate their planetary shields." "Didn't need to," Luna grinned. "Traded them all for snacks. Speaking of which, thanks for the stellar squid chips, Captain Igrix." Captain Igrix, who had spent the entire simulation maintaining a perfect defense grid, watched helplessly as his own invasion force retreated from a barrage of recycled entertainment tactics and badly spelled threats. "This isn't how strategic planning works," he finally exploded. "Where are the calculated risks, the carefully plotted defensive grids, the probabilistic analysis?" "Probability analysis?" Kai looked up from his control panel, where he was making the drones dance to something called the Macarena. "You mean like calculating the chances of the enemy being so confused they give up?" I saw several of the competition judges huddled together, frantically reviewing the rulebooks. Technically, there was nothing that said you couldn't turn a planetary defense system into an arcade game, or trade military resources for snacks. As the humans celebrated their victory with more of those strange dance moves, I couldn't shake the feeling that we'd all severely underestimated what they were capable of. And we still had 2 more challenges to go. The survival exercise took place in our most brutal simulation yet. A toxic jungle planet with acid rain, predatory flora, and temperatures that fluctuated between boiling and freezing every 6 hours. Each team had to survive for 3 planetary rotations while completing various objectives. "This should finally put those humans in their place," I said, watching the teams prepare. "No games or dancing will help them here." The Arcturus Shadow Corps arrived in environmental suits that cost more than a small spaceship. Captain Igrix's team had engineered themselves temporary resistance to every known environmental hazard. Other teams brought emergency shelters, survival gear, and enough supplies to outlast a small apocalypse. The humans brought blankets and something called instant noodles. "Begin survival exercise," Admiral Krelthor commanded. The simulation activated, and immediately the acid rain began to fall. The Arcturus Shadow Corps disappeared into their high-tech shelters. Captain Igrix's team activated their environmental shields. The humans, they started singing. "This is it," I declared. "They've finally cracked under pressure." But no. Luna Blackwood was leading her team in constructing what they called a blanket fort, using their supplies and local vegetation. They'd somehow figured out that the large carnivorous plants in the area were water repellent and were using the leaves as a makeshift roof. "Those plants are highly poisonous," Blixer exclaimed. "Only if you touch the red spots," Nova Chen replied, casually weaving the leaves together. "The blue spots are actually quite nice, smell like blueberry muffins." "How did you know that?" I demanded. Kai licked one. "He what?" "Standard human scientific method," Luna explained, stirring something in a pot made from salvaged equipment. "If it smells like food, and doesn't immediately kill you when you touch it. Give it a tiny taste. I watched in horror as Kai Rodriguez actually gave her a thumbs up while eating what appeared to be toxic jungle fruit. Tastes like spicy chicken, he announced. The temperature began to drop as night fell. Most teams huddled in their protective gear, carefully monitoring their vital signs. The humans, however, had turned their shelter into some sort of party venue. They'd rigged up heating using the bioluminescent properties of local fungi, which they discovered after Kai tried to use one as a flashlight. They were cooking their instant noodles with heat from what they called spicy danger peppers, highly volatile plant pods that most species classified as biological weapons. Current temperature -40 degrees, the AI announced. The Arcturus Shadow Corps' expensive suits were starting to malfunction. Captain Ygrix's team was burning through their energy reserves, maintaining their biological modifications. Meanwhile, the humans had started telling something called ghost stories and making hot chocolate from modified toxic berries. "Your species is insane," a shivering cadet from Proxima Centauri called out. "Nah, this is nothing," Luna replied cheerfully. "This is like camping in Canada, except the bears here have 6 heads." By the second day, most teams were struggling. The constant environmental changes had taken their toll on even the most advanced equipment. But the humans, they'd turned survival into a game. They created a point system for identifying edible plants, built an obstacle course using naturally occurring hazards, and started a betting pool on which carnivorous tree would eat the most falling fruit. "Look at their vital signs," Blixor pointed at the monitors. "They're not just surviving, they're having fun." "That's impossible," I muttered. But the data didn't lie. Their stress levels were actually lower than when they started. The third day brought the worst conditions yet: magnetic storms, gravitational fluctuations, and a plague of what the humans dubbed murder butterflies. While other teams fought against the environment, the humans adapted to it. They used the gravitational fluctuations to play something called extreme volleyball. They discovered the murder butterflies were attracted to certain fungal spores and created a natural repellent. They even started humming along with the magnetic storms. "The frequency matches something called heavy metal," Luna explained to bewildered observers. "Pretty good beat, actually." When the exercise finally ended, most teams emerged exhausted, traumatized, and in need of immediate medical attention. The humans came out with recipes for 3 new types of jungle fruit soup, a working hammock made from predatory vines, and what they claimed was the best camping trip ever. "But how?" Captain Ygrix demanded, his carefully engineered environmental resistance wearing off. "Your equipment was primitive. Your methods were chaotic. You had no survival protocols." "That's exactly why we survived," Nova Chen said, sharing some of their modified hot chocolate. "Humans don't adapt the environment to ourselves. We adapt ourselves to the environment." "Also," Kai added, "everything's more fun if you pretend you're on a really weird vacation." Standing there, watching them trade survival tips with the other teams, I had an epiphany. The humans weren't succeeding despite their primitive methods and chaotic approach. They were succeeding because of them, and we still had the final challenge ahead of us. I needed a drink, preferably something stronger than hot chocolate made from toxic berries. The final challenge was designed to break even the most seasoned warriors. A combination of combat, strategy, and survival skills in an ever-changing environment. Teams had to infiltrate an enemy fortress, retrieve classified data, and escape while the entire simulation tried to kill them. "At least we'll see a proper display of military precision now," I said, attempting to convince myself more than Blixer. "The humans can't possibly improvise their way through this." The fortress materialized. A quantum-shifting maze of death traps, combat drones, and environmental hazards. Multiple entry points, each more heavily guarded than the last. Advanced security systems that could detect a particle of dust moving out of place. Captain Ygrix's team started calculating infiltration vectors. The Arcturus Shadow Corps began their stealth protocols. Other teams initialized their combat algorithms and strategic matrices. The humans were having a dance party. "What are they doing?" Blixer asked, his confusion reaching new heights. "According to their comm channel, they're having a pre-mission hype session," I replied, watching in disbelief as they performed something called the Wave. Luna Blackwood's voice came over the general frequency. "Hey, anyone want to join our conga line before we start?" The silence that followed was deafening. "Suit yourselves," she shrugged. "Kai, hit it!" Kai Rodriguez had somehow hacked into the fortress's speaker system and started playing what he called their heist playlist. The security AI's attempts to block the music only made it louder. "Tactical advantage, confusion," Nova Chen explained to the bewildered observers. "No one expects a break-in to have background music." While every other team was meticulously working their way through the fortress's outer defenses, the humans threw a party. They turned the infiltration into what they called a flash mob, dancing their way past security sensors that were programmed to detect stealth, not synchronized choreography. "The security systems are designed to track logical movement patterns," I protested. "Exactly," Luna grinned, leading her team in something called the electric slide right through a laser grid. "Nothing logical about this." The fortress's environmental hazards kicked in. Toxic gas filled the corridors. The humans pulled out their leftover jungle fruit from the survival challenge and started juggling them. "The acidic compounds in the fruit are neutralizing the gas," Blixer noted, checking his readings. "But how did they know?" "We didn't," Kai admitted cheerfully. "We just thought it would be funny if the gas turned colors when it hit the fruit. The neutralizing thing is a bonus." Captain Igrix's perfectly coordinated team watched in horror as the humans turned their careful tactical operation into what appeared to be an impromptu circus performance. Nova Chen was using their grappling hooks to swing across deadly chasms while singing Safety Dance. Kai had reprogrammed the security drones to play musical chairs. The classified data they needed to retrieve was stored behind the most sophisticated quantum encryption ever created. It would take hours to crack the code using conventional methods. Luna Blackwood took one look at the terminal and said, "Has anyone tried hitting all the buttons at once?" "That's not how encryption works," Captain Yigrix shouted from across the fortress. But Luna had already convinced her team to perform what they called a keyboard smash crowd surf. They launched themselves at the terminal, hitting every button simultaneously while singing "Don't Stop Believing." The encryption crashed. Not because they broke the code, but because the quantum computer couldn't process the sheer absurdity of their input method. "Data retrieved," Luna announced, downloading the files while her team celebrated with a conga line. Now they just had to escape. The fortress began its self-destruct sequence, filling with lava and automated turrets. The perfect test of advanced evasion tactics and survival skills. The humans turned it into a game show. "Welcome to Extreme Exit Challenge," Kai announced over the hijacked speaker system. "Today's contestants must escape certain doom while completing our obstacle course. First up, the lava floor limbo." They somehow convinced 3 other teams to join their escape plan, turning the deadly security measures into competition events. Turret Dodging Derby became an instant hit. Even Captain Igrix found himself participating in combat drone karaoke against his better judgment. "This isn't a competition anymore," I wailed. It's fun," Blixer suggested, trying to hide the fact that he was tapping his foot to the music. The humans reached the exit first, but instead of leaving, they stayed to help other teams escape. They turned rescue operations into a dance battle, formed a human chain across hazardous gaps, and shared their remaining jungle fruit snacks with exhausted competitors. When the simulation finally ended, the scoring system nearly crashed trying to calculate their points. They'd completed the mission with the highest success rate in Academy history, but their methods violated so many protocols that new rules had to be written on the spot. "Victory awarded to the human team," Admiral Krelthor announced, sounding like he could hardly believe it himself. The celebration that followed defied description. The humans taught their victory dances to everyone. including a very reluctant Captain Igrix, who turned out to have a surprising talent for something called the moonwalk. The Arcturus Shadow Corps, their dignity in tatters but their spirits surprisingly high, joined in a massive conga line. Battle-hardened warriors from across the galaxy found themselves attempting to do the wave with various numbers of limbs. "I don't understand," I said to Luna Blackwood as the party raged on. "How did you turn the galaxy's most challenging military exercise into this?" She grinned, offering me a cup of their toxic berry hot chocolate. "That's the secret, Commander. Everything's better when you stop trying to be perfect and just have fun with it." "Even warfare?" "Especially warfare. Because sometimes the best way to win isn't to be the most powerful or the most advanced. Sometimes you just need to be the ones having the most fun." I took a sip of the hot chocolate. It tasted like victory and chaos, and maybe a little bit of madness. And surprisingly, I was okay with that. The post-competition ceremony was in full swing when Admiral Krelthor dropped the bombshell that made my tentacles curl in shock. "And now, a special recognition for our human team," he announced, consulting his datapad, "who have set a new record as the youngest competitors in the Academy's history." The celebration stopped. You could have heard a quantum particle drop. "Excuse me." Captain Igrix stepped forward, his scales twitching. "How young exactly?" Luna Blackwood scratched her head. "Well, I'm 22, Nova's 20, and Kai just turned 19 last week. We celebrated with pizza in the survival challenge, remember?" 19 rotations. I felt my third heart skip a beat. But that's barely past larval stage. The other competitors began checking their universal age converters. Captain Igrix, a respected veteran of 150 cycles, looked like he might faint. The Arcturus Shadow Corps, who spent decades perfecting their stealth techniques, were turning an interesting shade of transparent. "You mean to tell me," I said slowly, "that our entire military doctrine was just upended by children?" "College students, actually," Nova corrected, munching on leftover jungle fruit. "We're still in training back on Earth." "Training?" Blixer squeaked. "You mean you get even better?" The implications hit everyone at once. If these were just trainees, what were full-fledged human soldiers capable of? How many other games could they turn into devastating military strategies? "Don't worry," Luna said, noticing our collective existential crisis. "We're not really into the whole galactic domination thing. Too much paperwork." "Besides," Kai added, "there are so many cooler things we could do together. Who wants to learn how to turn a quantum torpedo launcher into a dubstep machine?" Several high-ranking officials looked horrified at the suggestion, but I noticed a few younger cadets from various species edging closer, curiosity overcoming their training. Looking at these humans, these children who'd turned our most sacred military traditions into a party and somehow made them more effective, I realized something important. Perhaps the future of galactic warfare wasn't about who had the most advanced technology or the most rigid training. Perhaps it was about who could think differently, adapt quickly, and yes, even have fun while saving the galaxy. "Lieutenant Blixer," I said, straightening my command sash, "make a note. Next year's competition should include a dance category." For the first time in my military career, I meant it. As I write this report for the Galactic Military Archives, I can't help but chuckle at how much has changed. The humans have been invited to send more teams next year, though we've had to revise our entire rulebook. We added sections for unconventional tactics, improvisational warfare, and acceptable snack trades during combat. Captain Igrix now teaches a course called Adaptive Strategy and Recreational Combat, though he still refuses to admit he enjoys the dancing. The Arcturus Shadow Corps have incorporated what they call party camouflage into their stealth training. And yes, we did install that dubstep torpedo launcher. It's surprisingly effective. Luna, Nova, and Kai send us messages occasionally. They're graduating soon and planning to spice up the galaxy's military scene. I should probably be worried about that. But you know what? Maybe the galaxy needed a little chaos, a little laughter. A reminder that sometimes the best solution isn't the most logical one. Just don't tell anyone I said that. I have a reputation to maintain, though I must admit I've gotten quite good at the moonwalk. End report, Commander Zarzith, Galactic Military Academy, P.S. Does anyone know where I can get more of those toxic berry hot chocolate recipes?